Good evening. I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the San Mateo Planning Commission to order. If you will all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Ramiro Maldonado.
Present.
Commissioner Ellen Mallory.
Present.
Vice Chair Mike Etheridge is not present today and is excused. Chair Diane Whitaker.
Here.
Thank you.
On tonight's consent calendar, we have two items. We have the approval of the minutes from our November 13th, 2018 commission meeting and the approval of the minutes for the November 27th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. And we've received revised draft copies of that. Do we have any additional corrections, additions, or deletions?
I did have, through the chair, I do have one general comment, and
Which meeting?
we're there for all of the meeting notes, or for both. And it would be on page 3, where the Planning Commission at the adjournment, the Planning Commission meetings are broadcast live at 7:30 p.m. And I think we might want to change that going forward to reflect the 7 o'clock start. It says 7:30, but we now start at 7.
Okay.
Just a minor detail, but
Is that on tonight's agenda?
yes.
Tonight's agenda, okay. Back to the two November meetings. Do we have any changes to that? Okay. I would be looking for a motion to approve those.
A motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Move on to public comment, and this is the opportunity for those in the audience who wish to address the commission on an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Do we have any speaker slips for the general public comment? No. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the commission? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. So the first, okay.
This is the additional public comments that were supposed to already be put out for you before I came.
Thank you.
For the Baldwin project, okay. Thank you. So a little bit of housekeeping. I'm looking for a motion to change the order of tonight's agenda, and I'll explain why in a moment. So that would be to reverse the order of the two projects tonight and to do the Waters Park Drive first and then move on to 303 Baldwin. Could I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Our new item 3, which is 1, 2, and 3 Waters Park Drive, the applicant has asked... Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Vote on the motion to change the order of the agenda tonight. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 4-0. Thank you. So back, the applicant for the Waters project has asked that this item be continued until the next meeting in the month of January in order to dialogue with the neighborhood to resolve some outstanding issues. So now I would be looking for a motion to continue the Waters Park Drive project to a date certain, which would be Wednesday, January 23rd. It's a Wednesday because Monday is Martin Luther King Day, or no, is it?
Yes.
Martin Luther King Day, so City Council is bumping us from Tuesday. They're going to take that time slot, and we will have our meeting on that Wednesday. So, yes, to move the project to a date certain, which is Wednesday, January 23rd. I'd like a motion for that.
I motion that we move, create a continuum for the 123 Waters Park Drive project to schedule for January 23rd.
Second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And do we have people in the audience tonight who came for that specific project? Okay. So at the discretion of the Planning Commission, we will not have a staff report, we will not have an applicant presentation, but we could open public comment on this project, if that's the wish of the Planning Commission. We would not close public comment so that when it does come before us on the 23rd, we would accept additional public comment. Any thoughts one way or the other?
Do we have
Oh,
a list
do we
of,
have speakers that have slips for that item? Not for that item, okay.
okay.
So I only saw one hand in the audience. Let me ask, were you intending to speak tonight?
No, I just wanted to see if it was going to be changed,
Okay,
so we're all on the same page.
sure. Okay, so we have no one,
Speakers.
so that's what we'll do. Thank you. Okay. So now we will move on to our new item 4, which is 303 Baldwin Avenue mixed-use SPAR site development permit application, vesting tentative residential and commercial condominium map. And we'll start with staff presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening, Chair Whitaker and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Roscoe Mata, project planner for PA 17-085303 Baldwin Avenue, mixed-use project. Before I begin my presentation, I'd like to bring your attention to the color and materials board for the project, which is behind the chairs, behind the dais. Additionally, I have prepared a memo to the Commission about additional public comment and correspondence for the item tonight. As you will see in the memorandum, there's a document regarding the clarifications to the findings for the 2 street loading zones, attachment 1, and those findings are to the SPAR. Clarifications to the mixed-use data form in attachment 6. An updated density bonus letter from the applicant that places the existing density bonus letter, and that updated letter is essentially eliminating a paragraph because it no longer applies. Additionally, we have 2 attachments from Karen Jensen, who submitted comment to staff on March 15, 2018. And lastly, 4 new letters of support for the project, and that's also included. project for you tonight is a 4-story commercial and 5-story residential building, including 64 residential units totaling 132,575 square feet. The project includes 6 below market rate units at the very low affordability level, as well as 35% density bonus, for providing 11% of the base density units at the very low income level. The units are studio and 1-bedroom units. Parking is provided through a 4-level underground garage that will provide 283 vehicular parking stalls, as well as bike parking for 82 bicycles. Since the project utilizes state density bonus law, the applicant is eligible for 2 development concessions or incentives. The applicant has opted to request in its concession to increase the floor area from 3.00 to 3.26, as well as allow residential uses along North Ellsworth Avenue. The applicant's density bonus and concession request letter is included as attachment 7. The applicant is requesting the following project entitlements: site plan and architectural review for construction of the mixed-use building with 2 on-street loading zones, a site development planning application for the removal of trees 6 inches or greater in diameter, and a tentative residential and commercial condominium map for the creation of residential and commercial units. The project site is outlined in blue in the excerpt taken from the city's zoning map on the right. The site is located within the North B Street commercial corridor in red and adjacent to the central business district on the lower right corner in the image in the pink. Additionally, the site is adjacent to the R5 zoning district, which contain multifamily buildings along North Ellsworth Avenue. The project site is composed of 2 parcels that would merge to create an approximately 0.93 acre lot. The 2 parcels include the Trags Market and associated parking lot. The image on this slide is an excerpt from the city's historic resources map. The subject site is located adjacent to the historic district to the south, as well as immediately east of 15 North Ellsworth Avenue, structure eligible for the California Register of Historic Resources. The historic district is outlined in gray and hatched with gray horizontal lines. At the recommendation of the Planning Commission, at a previous study session, the applicant requested the city to retain a professional consultant to evaluate the structure's impact on the immediate historic resources. And staff retained the consulting services of ARG, Architectural Resources Group. The report concluded that the project would not have a significant or negative impact on the Central Business Historic District or the property at 15 North Ellsworth Avenue. The report and the findings are attached to the staff report as attachment 11. The general plan land use designation is neighborhood commercial/high density multifamily, and the zoning for the property is C1-2/R5. The general plan designation and zoning allows for mixed use development with high density multifamily. The base maximum density on the approximately 0.93 acre lot is 47 residential units. Of the 47 residential units, the applicant is proposing to dedicate 6 affordable units, which in turn allows a density bonus of 35%, which yields a total of 64 residential units. Because the applicant has proposed affordable units, state law and local ordinance allows 2 concessions or incentives to the development standards. The incentive being requested is an increase in floor area from 3.00 to 3.26 and a concession to allow residential use on a portion of the ground floor along North Ellsworth Avenue. In addition to allowing the density bonus, the state allows reduced parking standards. Government Code Section 659.15 P1 permits reduced parking standards for density bonus projects within half mile of transit. By providing the units at the very low income level, the minimum parking standard is 0.5 space per bedroom, inclusive of visitor and handicap parking spaces, which equates to 32 parking spaces. However, the applicant has opted to provide a little bit more than that and provide 68 residential parking spaces, which is roughly a little bit more than 1 per unit. The project complies with the state density bonus law and reduced statewide parking standards for density bonus projects within a half mile of transit. The original design of the project contained large glass with dark brick, and the Planning Commission reviewed the design at a study session in September 2017, and then also in March 2018. The first study session held in 2017 provided the Commission an opportunity to review the proposed building and provide feedback to the applicant and staff. In summary, the Commission noted that the amount of glass used in the building was too much and the mix of the materials should be more reflective of the downtown. The Commission also noted that the building should have a more inclusive transition to the North Beach storefronts as well as sensitive to the historic district. The applicant revised the design and a second study session was held in March 2018. The general comments at that point were that the project needs a better relationship to downtown, more privacy for the ground floor residential, and more variation of the storefronts. Minutes of the study sessions are attached to the administrative report as attachments 12 and 13. The applicant has responded to the comments of both study sessions, worked with staff and the city's design review consultant, Larry Cannon, on making improvements to the design. Larry Cannon's design review letter regarding the changes is included as attachment 10. The applicant has prepared a presentation that will go into more detail about the design changes, and that presentation will follow staff's presentation. Staff received several letters of support for the project. In addition, staff received comments regarding the minimum parking provided for the project, the green space provided on site, historic design, the location of San Mateo Creek, groundwater contamination, and gentrification. Staff responded to both CEQA and non-CEQA related comments in attachments 16 and 17. In summary, the parking and green space provided by the project meets the minimum requirements specified by the zoning code, and the building was reviewed with city's design review consultants and by ARG with respect to the project's relationship to downtown and the immediate historic resources. And also, as stated in the conclusion of attachment 16, the comments received on the ISM&D do not warrant recirculation, provide for additional public review, nor do they introduce substantial evidence in support of a fair argument that the proposed project may result in significant environmental impacts. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission, one, adopt mitigated negative declaration as sufficient to assess the environmental impacts of the project based on the findings of approval in attachment 1 and conditions of approval in attachment 2. And 2, approve site plan and architectural review for construction of a new 4- and 5-story residential, office, ground floor commercial mixed-use building consisting of 64 multifamily units with 4-level underground parking garage and 2 street loading zones, site development planning application for the removal of trees greater than 6 inches, and tentative commercial and residential condominium map based on the findings of approval, attachment 1, and conditions of approval, attachment 2. This concludes staff's presentation. I am available to answer any questions the Commission may have. Larry Cannon, who conducted the design review for the project, representative from ARG, who conducted the historic resource assessment, David J. Powers for the environmental review, and Hexagon for the traffic, are also present if there are any questions regarding the respective studies and reports. The applicant has also prepared a presentation for the Commission and can answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Commission have any questions regarding the staff report?
Through the chair. Just a minor question to you, Roscoe, is on the November 28, 2018 notice of intent to adopt a mitigated negative declaration on this project, the required approvals under D would be a vesting tentative map to merge 3 parcels into 1 parcel. And on the mitigated negative deck, dated November 2018 also, I think it only calls out 2 parcels. So I don't know which document is correct, or if they're saying the same thing.
There's 2 parcels that are going to be merged, but then the additional component is the creation of the condominium map for the commercial and residential. So they're technically 2 legal parcels.
Thank you. That was it?
That's it?
Yeah.
Ellen? No? Okay, we'll move on to the applicant's presentation.
Flip over. Great, thank you. All right, so thank you. My name is John Moss. I'm with Prometheus Real Estate Group. I want to thank you for providing us an opportunity for us to share our plans with you this evening. We are extremely excited about relocating, moving our corporate headquarters with 150 of our employees to this location. It's an amazing site across from the train station in your downtown, and that would be in the event that we were able to get approval this evening. Staff did a phenomenal job, very comprehensive. They covered everything. We agree with everything that they said this evening. We agree with everything that is in the staff report. But we especially agree with the conclusion, which was, I believe, a recommendation for approval this evening by the Planning Commission. So I first want to just mention a few key characteristics of our project, and then turn it over to our project architect to go over the design in more detail. So first slide here was about community outreach. So we basically met with everybody that would possibly meet with us over the last 2 years or so, and you can see by this list it covers a number of different organizations and groups, neighborhood associations within the city. We started way back in December of 16, so it's a little bit more than 2 years ago. The most important thing, I think, on this one, or at least the one I want to direct attention to, is the last study session that we had back in March with 85% there. I think we were told throughout that evening that we had made significant progress in terms of the design that we had come up with, and we were about 85% there. We're certainly hoping that in the last 10 months since that study session that we have accomplished the other 15% and that we are closer to 100% this evening. Variances. We're not asking for any variances here to your general plan, to your zoning, and to the downtown plan. These are all quotes that are in the staff report. I bring this up because it's highly unusual for us to be proposing projects in the Bay Area without any variances to any standard, so I wanted to take advantage of that while I could. Gift to the city. Well, it's still the holiday season, so we thought we would mention this. We are providing and dedicating and giving to the city 12% of our private property. We're dedicating that in the form of wider sidewalks around the property, and that is to allow for cafes and restaurants that we envision to be on the ground floor of this building to have ample opportunity for outdoor dining. Secondly, I mentioned curb cuts reduced. So there were 6 curb cuts that are on the site right now. We're going down to 1 curb cut, which should significantly improve the pedestrian experience. It also has allowed for the creation of new parking spaces out on the street. We also have been able to provide a new parklet that our architect will go over in a little bit more detail in a moment. Prevailing wage speaks for itself. We think this is unusual. We're very proud to be able to provide this project incorporating prevailing wage for our contractors. And then, what we really want to do is focus in on architecture design. And I want to talk about comments not made by myself or from our staff, but instead made from the city's design professionals. So one paramount goal I think that we all shared throughout this process was to ensure that the development will blend in with the existing historic downtown architecture. To determine if we accomplish this key goal, the city rightfully requested detailed and comprehensive review and opinions by 3 extremely qualified parties. First, of course, your beloved and infinitely capable city staff. Secondly, architectural consultant Larry Cannon, who's here this evening, along with Architectural Resources Group that was mentioned a little bit earlier. So I just wanted to go through these 3 groups that are now in support, generally speaking, of our design and show and share with you some of the comments that we've consolidated down from the staff report, comments that the planning staff has made here, stating that our project complements the existing downtown, will enhance the neighborhood. I won't go through the rest of it. You've got that in front of you. And then Larry's been looking at this project for the better part of a couple of years and has looked at it in detail over an extended period of time. and has concluded that the subsequent changes that we made since the last study session have improved the design and its compatibility with the urban fabric context. He took a look at the Baldwin Avenue frontage, I think this was mentioned by staff earlier, and concluded that we have improved that design to his satisfaction, generally speaking. Same with the North B Street southern frontage. And the northern frontage, we've created positive changes in making the transition between the old and the new buildings that exist. And then we've incorporated terracotta, which is appropriate to the building and its context and visually blend well with the textured brick above the storefronts. And then took a look at the north building facade as well and concluded that the solution that we came up with was a good solution. Then lastly, at the last study session, I think we heard about 10 different moments during that meeting that it would be great to go out to a historic architect and get some feedback as far as their opinion as in terms of the fitting in and blending in of this project with the historic downtown buildings. And you can see their comments on this slide here, directed to just the summary one, which is overall the proposed design responds to and references existing historic resources without creating a false sense of history or development. So with all that said, I'd like to turn this over to John McGill, who's with WRNS, and have him do a quick review of these design changes by providing some visual imagery. And if you have any questions for us, of course, we're here.
Thank you. I'm John McGill with WRNS Studio. We're the designers on this project, and I'll just echo what John said. It's been great working with staff, working with Larry Cannon, and getting great feedback on this project. We really feel that it's gotten a lot better since where we started, and so I'll be giving that overview as well as explicating some of the details in those notes that John just presented. Just to quickly orient you to the site, it's a little confusing because north is sort of diagonally up and to the left, so just to orient you, the train station is directly up on the page from the red area, Baldwin Avenue on the right, North B Street on the top of the page, and North Ellsworth on the bottom. And you can see the yellow areas are the commercial frontage on the commercial streets. The residential units start on Ellsworth to the left of the parking entrance. And the parklet element is the red zone on the corner of Baldwin and North B, which we'll show. Up above, the building is sort of bifurcated with the housing on the left around a courtyard and the office portion on the right in the yellow. So this diagram takes that site disposition and sort of explains 5 different storefront types that we developed. I think through some of the comments, we realized that you couldn't just have a relentless storefront design all the way around. It's quite a large site. So we broke it up into these 5 distinct areas, which are numbered here on the page, 5 being the residential frontage along Ellsworth and that scale. Number 1 is sort of the Baldwin frontage, which now has a more pronounced canopy element. Section 2 is really the terracotta storefront area. And then 3 and 4 are smaller scaled storefronts with fabric awnings and a tiled knee wall beneath the glass, which helps make the transition to the other businesses to our northwest. The material board that's behind the podium there is repeated here just so people can see. We're proposing sort of a warm gray brick color, much lighter than where we started out over a year ago, and what we're calling a latte terracotta panel, for lack of a better term. And there's also quite a bit of wood on the project, mostly on the overhangs and some of the storefronts and residential facades. This was just to quickly highlight the big picture changes from where we started back in September 17, the first study session. As was referenced, we had a dark brick base and then a lot of glass above, sort of a glass box expression. As you can see on the right where we are today, it's quite a different expression. It's a lighter brick. There's a lot more of the brick, more regular punched window openings, and the glass really only exists at the top of the building at the setback portion. And we've worked to try to make sure that that was not too prominent. I'll go through these enlargements pretty quickly. This view is taken from Transit Center Way, from essentially the train station. You can see on the left where we started. The right is where we were back in March. Glass was reduced, substantially. And then since March, we've worked further with the staff and with Larry Cannon to sort of really invest in this special moment. This is sort of the primary view that folks will have coming off the train. So you can see the larger canopy over the Baldwin storefront frontage, the office entry to the right, and the parklet plaza piece, which you'll see a little bit more detail, is all of the greenery there in front. So just quickly through that progression. Here's the corner at Baldwin and North B. On the left, where we started out in 2017. On the right, you can see there is this sort of a public plaza or a miniature plaza, what we're calling the parklet, which has planters, benches, and is sort of enhanced pavement, intended to be a space for the city. It's not part of a private development. It's essentially public space, and how the warm wood canopy relates to that space, which we think is a good urban move. Here's a more detailed view of the parklet elements. The plan on the top kind of shows the shape of the planters. The benches are these sort of cut-in areas, and you'll see some 3D imagery of that. And then the section below shows how the planters also include benches where people can sit, and how the canopy participates in that scaling. At the office entry, on the left is where we were in March, on the right is where we are now. There's been some general refinement of proportion, but most importantly, we've added a sort of sawtooth brick texture piece above the storefront, which we think is contextual without being a copy of anything that's currently present. It still manages to coexist with our neighbors. We also have introduced a terracotta panel to the left of the office entrance, which you see there. This is intended to be the site for public art, which I'm going to show you some early concepts for. So this is where we were. This is where we are today. We've also added some wood to the right of the image at the storefronts in this terracotta, so it's sort of a wood vitrine expression, adding a bit more warmth and variety. And just a moment to talk about terracotta and how it's used downtown. There are two major buildings that I think are well known, 201 South B Street and then 310 Baldwin Avenue, directly across Baldwin Avenue from our site. Both use terracotta. 201 South B, it's the entire facade, as well as a decorative element at the base. And then on 310 Baldwin, it's at the base and some decorative infill up above the storefront. And you can see on the upper right, that was our team and staff reviewing terracotta samples on site last year, and kind of looking how the material reacts to sunlight and changes depending on the angle of the sun. The concept for the terracotta panels, the typical ones that are to the right of that image, is we looked at a number of options. This one that was selected is based on Native American Ohlone thatched sweat lodge construction, abstracted slightly, but intended to sort of convey the same idea of texture, and it's approximated by the sample that's behind you. And then the public art piece, this is very much a placeholder. This is not intended to be a literal depiction. Prometheus has engaged an artist who they've started working with to design this piece, and the intent is to draw from all of San Mateo's rich history, whether it be from Ohlone times all the way through the present, textures, artifacts, found objects, and items that will tell the story in detail of the historical progression of downtown San Mateo. That is just getting started, but this is some of the artist's work, just intended to give you a sense of how those textures can describe, literal objects, things that you can actually see as historical elements, but also abstracted into a cohesive piece of art. And then just wrapping up here, this was the portion of the North B frontage adjacent to our commercial neighbors to the northwest. On the left is sort of where we were. I don't think this image was shown in March, but this is sort of where the design was. It was a much more consistent sort of approach. On the right, we've worked hard with the city and with Larry Cannon to develop some fabric awnings, introducing some color. You can see the indication of a tile wall below some of the storefront. The color of the tile would be different in each bay. We've also dropped the head of the storefront in this zone to make a transition. So previously it was sort of a straight line all the way across. On the right hand, it's a little hard to see. And by the way, we have printed boards if anything is difficult to see or anyone wants to see more closely. It's a little easier to see here. The straight line, and then more disruption to that line, and the addition of the fabric awnings. On the Ellsworth side of the building, we've also worked to improve the storefront or facade, reducing the depth of the entry alcoves, which were probably a little bit deep previously. We also had a very shallow planter, which is now much deeper to create a better buffer and a better sense of privacy for those units. We're also proposing an opaque glass for the lower portion. So, before and current. And then the final piece here is the sort of party wall condition to the northwest. Previously, this was imagined to be mostly a blank wall that might have been cement plaster, might have had a mural on it. In discussing some of those things, it seemed more appropriate, and we agree to wrap the materials around, kind of completing the volume of the building, not treating this as a big blank wall, but really part of the architecture and part of a unified design. We think that that's very positive, and Larry Cannon's final letter agreed with that point. So that's it. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions of the applicant regarding their presentation? Yes? Oh, on this side? Questions? Not right now. John? Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the trees, as far as my questions go. My first question is that there were some pine trees on a neighbor's property. And my questions were, why did they need to be removed? How has it come to an agreement with the property owner to remove those trees? And were any of those trees heritage trees not included in the list that is on the property to be developed?
Yes, those pine trees are located in the adjacent neighbor aren't included in the application because those trees are on the adjacent neighboring property. So the applicants, and the reason why those trees will have to be removed is the resulting underground garage will result in cutting the roots too severely to actually sustain any health of the tree. So the applicant has been in touch with that property owner regarding the tree removal, and we'll be working with the property owner. You could probably speak to more about that conversation.
Okay. But the property owner was in agreement to do it?
Jonathan may want to...
Good evening. Jonathan Stone with Prometheus. Yes, we have been in lengthy conversation with the property owner. He's here this evening and can probably speak to it himself as well, but we continue to keep lines of communication open.
Okay. And so he's good with having these trees taken down?
He does know that those trees will come down, and we are discussing the way in which to do that.
Okay. So the heritage windmill palm, which is really the only heritage tree on that site, and was there any consideration to move that tree? Is it possible, or is it too large to be taken to a different place?
Because the site is constrained and the development footprint maximizes the site, there wasn't any discussion to remove and replace that tree anywhere else on the site.
And is there a fee associated with removing the heritage tree?
There are fees that will be, in lieu fees that will be paid, correct.
And so the trees that are pulled down on that property are replaced with what kind of species? Are they similar to what's there now? Has that even been decided?
The applicant will have to pay in lieu fees the amount of tree replacement because there is no area on the site to locate them on the ground. That'll have to be, the applicant will have to pay an in lieu fee for the removal of that tree. So one other option was to locate it somewhere on the site, but given that there's very limited space, that wasn't discussed.
And so there were 18 trees that are going to be replanted, is that correct?
There are 18 trees, that is correct.
And those are around the perimeter?
That's correct. There are street trees, but those aren't counted towards the tree replacement for the removal of that protected tree because they're not on the site.
Oh.
So those 18 trees that are being planted aren't being planted to compensate for the loss of that heritage tree.
Okay. Because they're on sidewalk area?
Because they're in the public right-of-way.
Okay. Then I was just curious, what is the amount of the traffic impact fee?
Excuse me, the traffic impact?
The traffic impact fee.
Public.
And is the $100,000 in addition to the traffic impact fee that's being paid by the applicant?
So the traffic impact fee has not been calculated at this point, but it'll be based on the square footage of what's there now and the traffic that exists and the net gain in traffic.
That's still to be determined.
That'll be determined at the building permit stage, but there's a condition of approval that they will need to pay for that. The other monies you're talking about is above and beyond that traffic impact fee. So that is not part of the traffic impact fee. That's above and beyond.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. Okay, thank you. And I wondered how much is being paid in school impact fees? I don't have to know right away.
We don't have the answer to that question. It'd be the standard fee that's required by the school district.
It's a standard fee?
It's a standard fee that's adopted by the school districts. We require evidence of payment prior to issuance of the building permit.
Okay, so that's paid directly to the district?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, and I do have questions on the negative declaration, page 50, the archaeological resources. And it is mapped as a prehistoric Native American architectural site, so there's potential. My question was, when was the creek channelized that goes underneath the property? Or does it go next to the property?
Smpc Creek, it does not go under the property. It goes around it. So
it goes around it.
Yeah, it's in a culvert that goes up Baldwin and then around the corner down B Street and then underneath the building on next to Mi Rancho. Yeah.
How old is that?
That was done, I don't know, probably at least 60, 70 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, because at one time, B Street ended at the creek, when the creek was still open, an open channel, it stopped at Baldwin and just had a little pedestrian bridge. And then when they created Baldwin and B Street and everything, that's when they channelized the creek.
And was there awareness when they did it 60 years ago about what was being disrupted underneath during the building of the culvert?
Probably
Was there
not.
anything written or reported or in city documents that indicates that they were aware of what was underneath?
I would have to research that.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I was just curious if that that had come up.
And when I say 60, it's probably even longer ago than that.
No,
now that I really think, but
if anything was found or anything came up during the building of that culvert at that time, or if it was just built and there wasn't, that's fine. I just was curious if anything
my guess
was...
is construction practices at that time, there probably was not really any checking of what was dug up when they dug that trench.
Because it did mention in the report that there was a report made by someone that by the bridge there were middens that were.
Yeah, I mean, since then, I mean, there have been a lot of just studies for the middens, and all along the San Mateo Creek, you do, I mean, that's fairly common that you find the, Ohlone were, in that area, and they did have, middens and other sites, because I know that came up when we were doing the bridge over Third Avenue where the creek goes near the highway there, and that was replaced about 20 years ago, and they did, during the construction there, they did do some looking for archaeological and had, so there are reports for that, but at this site, I think it's probably pre them doing any of those type of reports.
Okay. And what is the process when the subsurface testing is done? Who hires the archaeologist? Is it the city or is it the applicant? And what are the plans by the applicant just on the off chance that there is a historically significant finding under that property? Because from what I gathered, that was really, when I read through the negative deck, that's what hit me as being potentially significant. And that was really the only spot.
Right. In the audience, we have a representative from David J. Powers who could speak a little bit more about what the process would be if there are any remains found.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Dimitri Lucas, Project Manager at David J. Powers and Associates. We assisted the city with the preparation of the initial study. And you're right, there was substantial work done, investigation for cultural resources on the site. And the mitigation measures identified are quite detailed, and there's going to be an archaeological monitoring agreement. And the project is, in that agreement, is going to identify that there's going to need to be timely notification if anything is found, that there's going to be time for the recordation if something is found, and also time and money basically to allow for it to be fully investigated and curated. So, and that, yeah, you don't know exactly what you're going to find when you dig, and it could interfere with construction. They do try to work together because this is common in construction practices to have, in this case, we're going to be having archaeological monitoring, so that, they'll work together to make sure that the resources, if present, are rightfully treated, but at the same time, hopefully have a project that doesn't get delayed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question I had is the building itself, and where are the BMR units going to be located?
That hasn't been determined yet. It'll be determined during the building permit stage, and typically they're scattered throughout.
They're scattered around the building?
Yes.
And do we have any idea what the retail stores are going to be, or is that TBD as well?
The applicant probably speaks to better, but at this point, the retail tenants, from my knowledge, it hasn't been determined.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have one question for the applicant. Could you tell me definitively how many studio units you're proposing and how many one-bedroom units?
Sure. Jonathan Stone has that data. If we can wait 1 second.
27 and 37. 27 studios
And 37?
and 37 ones.
Now, the reason I ask is because in doing my prep for tonight, I found 5 references to unit counts. And of the 5 times it was mentioned, there were 3 different combination of numbers, including within your own document.
The most current plan set from December 14th.
Which is what we got. Okay. So on your second sheet in the drawing set, the project description lists, the proposed floor areas lists 27 studios and 37 one-bedrooms, which is the numbers you just gave me. But on that same sheet, under parking requirements, the numbers have been flipped. And you're counting 37 studios and 27 one-bedrooms.
Right. So I think part of the confusion is what the column that's J1BR in the plan set. It refers to a junior one-bedroom, which is not, it's more of, I'd say, a marketing term. It's essentially, for code purposes, it's a studio unit. So I think we can clarify that in any way we need to in a follow-up. I think.
So would that or would that not affect the parking requirements?
In this case, it would not, because under the state density bonus, it's essentially one stall or half a stall under the code per bedroom. And a studio and a one-bedroom would be considered the same way. So it's a little semantic. We apologize for the confusion, though.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So, I have a question for the applicant, if we can stay up here. So of the 27 and 37, you have no idea which one would be BMRs, either a studio or one bedroom?
We will not. Typically, the process with the city is to do an equitable mix of unit type and location. So we have not gone to that process yet.
Okay.
John? No? Okay, we'll move on to the public comment. How many speaker slips do we have?
I have 6 speaker slips.
Okay. At this point, I'm not going to use the timer, but if you could try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Okay, if you call the first name.
Yes, I have Adam Lorraine, followed by Kathleen Wortham.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Adam Lorraine. I am a North Central San Mateo resident. I've lived in San Mateo for more than 20 years. I happen to be a sustainability and infrastructure commissioner, and I serve on some committees, but these are my comments reflecting just my personal opinion as a resident of San Mateo only. I came tonight to learn more about the project. I just wanted to mention that overall I am in support of this project and what a mixed-use, transit-oriented development can bring with some extra density to our downtown area and overall to our city as a whole. My main concern was with the Hexagon transportation traffic study results, and additionally some of the figures related to recommendations it made for ensuring that its required trip counts are going to be reduced, and on a high level, just ensuring that that takes place. When I looked at the overall high-level numbers that Hexagon provided with regard to how much more traffic will be in this area as a result of the extra development, I was not concerned. I accept those numbers, and I do believe that with a mixed-use, transit-oriented development, you're not necessarily going to have as much of a traffic impact. That's kind of the whole idea. My concern, though, is that I imagine you're going to hear some comments from other people who are not as confident in those numbers and are going to be, quite concerned about traffic in the area. And to me, this provides an opportunity for the applicant and for the city of San Mateo to meet sort of the residents of the city halfway or more in taking seriously the responsibilities that come with being a part of approving potentially a transit-oriented development and making sure that the process delivers on what it promises. And so I guess to be a little more specific as quickly as I can, what I'm getting at is I noticed there were some notes about the applicant being sort of mandated, if you will, to participate in a transportation management authority, but that this authority downtown has not yet been established. So I'm a little curious as to what the next steps on that are, and if it's not constructed soon, sort of what the where that leaves us. Perhaps there, I misread it, and staff can update, but I just wanted to get a sense of what that meant. And additionally, Hexagon had some ideas for the applicant to mitigate its traffic impact, unbundled parking, enrolling its employees of the the office section into Caltrain passes because Caltrain's right there, and so on. And so to me, I just think it's very important that both the city and the applicant do everything they can to make sure that in the end, after this great application and development is built, the numbers will bear out and we actually won't have a huge traffic situation on our hands. The rest of the city will be thankful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next name?
Kathleen Wortham, followed by Ken Abro.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Good evening. My name is Kathleen Wortham, and I work with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. On behalf of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, I'm speaking today to express our enthusiastic support for the 303 Baldwin development. As we are all aware, rising housing costs and mounting traffic threaten the quality of life here in San Mateo and the entire Bay Area. Leadership Group is a strong supporter of transit-oriented development, and this proposed development near the San Mateo Caltrain station is absolutely where we should be building high-density housing. Silicon Valley Leadership Group was founded in 1978 to proactively tackle issues to improve our communities and strengthen our economy. And our focus in housing policy, which is one of the 8 policy areas we focus in, is really strongly on affordable and TOD housing. So I'd like to take a moment to both highlight Prometheus Real Estate Group and the staff of San Mateo for working together on the design. I believe that that's a great look into great collaboration and great design, as the proposed development redesign is in alignment with both the character of downtown San Mateo and the city of San Mateo, and its charm. Additionally, the proposed development is an opportunity to provide 64 new homes for our community's workforce, 6 reserved for those who are very low income. The Bay Area is in a deep housing crisis, especially for affordable units, and this new development is a chance to build new homes near our public transit. Our workforce needs a place to go home at night, and we applaud the city of San Mateo for doing its part to provide homes and build new housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Abro, followed by Jordan Grimes.
Thank you. Ken Abreu, a 35-year resident. Just to echo a little bit what she just said, we are in a housing crisis, and high-density transit-oriented development is a key part of solving that. This project does that, and so I would strongly support it. It's just the kind of thing we need. It's right on the railroad station and right in the downtown. I do think it also offers us some food for thought as we move ahead on the general plan and the downtown plan, that absent some of the restrictions we now have on density, on height, this could have been bigger, and we could have had more here, right on the train station and right in a downtown area where it's very walkable. And also some of the parking requirements has led, I think, to much more parking than you need for something that's, again, right on a train station, right in a walkable downtown. So I think we could think about maybe this has been a missed opportunity, and in the future we can think about modifying our plans to be more able to handle this better transit oriented development. And also, let's make sure this has unbundled parking. That's still an open issue, and unbundled parking will make the units more affordable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jordan Grimes, followed by Nancy Schneider.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Jordan Grimes. I'm a lifelong San Mateo resident in 19th Avenue Park, and I'm here to support the TRAGS project. I'll admit that my support here is somewhat tepid for a few reasons. Despite being immediately adjacent to a major Caltrain stop, as well as Samtrans routes 292 and 250 in our downtown core, the project is only 5 stories tall, contains just 64 units, and has far more parking and office space than I believe it should, considering its proximity to public transit and San Mateo's current imbalance between jobs and housing, which I think is pretty well known to everyone at this point. I want to mention that most of these issues are not the fault of the developer. Heights and densities are unfortunately limited by residential decree, which necessitates more office space, which I know you all have heard repeatedly at this point, to make the project pencil out financially, and the parking requirements are almost assuredly driven by residents' comments as well. All of these things ultimately result in fewer BMR units at a time when maximizing affordable housing in our area is paramount. I am, however, happy that the project is addressing units at the very low rather than just the low level, and that prevailing wages will be paid to those building the project. Lastly, I do have some concerns that this particular development could spur speculation in the North Central neighborhood, and which is currently at risk of, if not undergoing, gentrification. And I therefore suggest that the city explore adoption of stricter demolition controls for occupied or recently occupied residential rental housing, as well as a sensitive community zoning designation for North Central, examples of which can be found in regional legislation that's ongoing, like the CASA Compact. All of the above notwithstanding, I do support the project, and I hope you'll approve it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy Schneider, followed by Ross Ito.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nancy Schneider. I'm a longtime resident of San Mateo and also a frequent visitor to the downtown area. I support this project and urge you to approve it. I believe this project is well thought out and is the right one for the site given its proximity to Caltrans Station and downtown. We need high-density housing in San Mateo and walkable mixed-use development. I do encourage the city and the developer to maintain a robust TDM program that includes reduced cost or free transit passes for residents and employees, unbundled parking, shared parking, and plenty of bike parking, and other measures to reduce and discourage the use of cars and fossil fuels. A residential parking permit program in the surrounding neighborhood would also discourage any spillover parking. Some of the current city requirements do hinder the project. The minimum parking rules require too many spaces in that location, and the height and density restrictions have limited the number of units that could have been included. Something to consider in your future work. But for now, please approve of the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ross Ito.
Hi, good evening. I've been to a number of these meetings, in fact, all of them for this particular project, because I happen to live only about, across the street and about half a block up Ellsworth. So I'm speaking in favor of the project. I was at the first community meeting in August of 17 when the original glass box was presented, and I think I was the only person at that meeting who actually spoke in favor of a contemporary design as opposed to a mock historical one. And I'm glad to see that they went through with that, and the changes have been, I think, terrific all along. So kudos especially to John Stone, who has met with me on multiple occasions for very long conversations, and who's shared a lot of what's been happening behind the scenes with the design, and also listening to ideas about what they could do. In particular, two things I'd like to point out in the new design that are particularly attractive. The idea of the retractable glass wall at the from floor to ceiling on the bottom retail level, and then the one thing that I really did like was the inclusion of the large canopy, which was not discussed before, which actually maps to something that I talked about earlier about the building needing to have some element that extended into downtown and really sort of tied the two together rather than just being a wall. And having that canopy, especially with the wooden soffit underneath it, is really, really going to look nice. So a lot of credit to Prometheus for adjusting the design, to John and Brian, and three Johns. And so I'm definitely in favor of it. As a neighbor, I'm obviously nervous about the 2.5 years of construction that'll be happening, but it'll be worth it in the end. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional speaker slips? Yes.
We have one more. Laura Watanuki.
Lori Watanuki. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. The 303 Baldwin project does better blend into our historic downtown. I do like the warm tones of terracotta, and the framed windows are a great improvement from the previous design. So I like these changes. This project does have 953 daily trips, and the one intersection that at B and Tilton, I think, will reach level of service E during PM peak hours. There's going to be 237 vehicles at Tilton and B. And Tilton and Delaware will be at level D. On page 51 of the Hexagon report, these two intersections may redirect traffic through Ellsworth. That's what it states. It would be good to address the pedestrian safety impacts for North Ellsworth at Tilton, which already has high throughput traffic numbers and speeding traffic. So I would like to see something addressed at that intersection. I do agree with the previous speaker about the RPPP. I think that's essential because North Ellsworth is predominantly residential. And it's just important to the residents in that area on that street that they have the RPPP. Overall, I do like the project. I like the concept of mixed use. And I do like the 4 to 5 story levels in this project. I think it's a nice architectural theme. And those are my comments.
Thank you. That's it? Okay. So if there's anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak, you can fill out the yellow form afterwards. But
yes, we have Thomas Heiser, followed by Maxine Turner.
I'm a resident of San Mateo. I just want to say I am really encouraged by this project. It's nice to see some more housing going into San Mateo. I wish that perhaps there was a little more office space going in and there was more housing going in, but it is what it is. I like that there's some below market rate units in here, help maintain a diverse population in San Mateo. I like that it sort of continues the walkable corridor along B Street as you're leaving the downtown. I feel like the parking lot for Trags right now is sort of just makes it unappetizing to keep walking in that direction as you're on foot going along there. I think something else that maybe with, I think it's Baldwin Street dead ending right there and B Street. Perhaps in the future there could be plans to maybe just close that little stretch to car traffic so that there's more walkable circulation around there. You don't have to worry about cars when you're trying to continue along on this B Street corridor. I also think that one of the drawbacks of this project is there is too much parking. There's more than what's required by the state minimums. But I think that perhaps that provides an opportunity for further both office and residential developments in this neighborhood. Perhaps they can maybe, say, rent or lease out parking spaces from this. So instead of having to cut into their own construction costs by putting more parking underground or wherever it might work out for the projects, they can perhaps take some of the parking from this project that can be shared between the projects, and that will help perhaps for, say, future housing projects to allow for more below market rate units to make the projects pencil out better for the developers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maxine Turner.
Good evening, Commissioners. Maxine Turner. Surprise. I support this project and would like to recognize how much the design has improved from the earlier renderings, particularly the reduction in the amount of glass. I did raise some questions about the glass at the last meeting that I went to, and the architect was supportive of some of that input. And it's not clear to me, and I would like you to try to address the whole fact of glass. And when you look as a pedestrian and all you see is the backs of computers, trash baskets, and all of the debris of an office space. So perhaps if the facade is already, if the glass has not been reduced enough, that perhaps some opaque glass could be at the bottom. So the inside people can look out, but we don't have to look at unattractive office space infrastructure. I totally support the high-density, transit-oriented development that this is, but I would like to acknowledge that it's a drop in the bucket, and particularly the affordable housing piece. It's all we've got now, but we really do have to look at ways to get more. And to note that we really need a better mix of unit sizes. Our affordable housing in particular, people need places for families, and all of it right now is being targeted to singles, especially with the number of studios. So I would like to see if there's anything we can or you can do about getting a better mix of unit sizes in this project. And certainly would like to ask that you make sure that the affordable units are distributed through this building in terms of their size and also their location. And the last point I'd like to make is a big picture, something for thinking about with all of this wonderful retail. And I do think the streetscape part of this building is some of its strongest benefits. But how do we assure that we don't wind up with empty storefronts because the rents are too high and there is a conflict between the vitality of the street that we're looking for as a city and the developer's interest in terms of maximizing rents. So I would like to suggest that perhaps a condition of approval could be added that there shall be no vacant storefronts longer than a certain period of time. We certainly know what we had to deal with the Draper project on 4th Avenue, which was vacant for over a year. Happily, there's some life in there now. But if we are going to be requiring retail, let's make sure that we're going to have the activity we all hope for. So I do support the project, and thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Edward Duran.
you hear me? All right. I want to thank everyone here for being here. 25 years ago, I was in the very same position applying for permits for my own project. It was a quarter the size of this one, but I wanted to thank the panel. They put me through the ringers, and they had a lot of conditions for me to meet. You guys will know that too. But on the other hand, there was actually a rhyme to the reason, and I'm here to say thank you guys very much for that. And I know that in the end, you'll do what's best for all parties involved, including those in San Mateo. And it's good to see everyone come out as citizens to speak their mind. And I just wanted to voice mine on this, and wanted to let you know that hopefully this goes well. There was a concern that one of the previous speakers brought up, and that is, as it goes on, as a business owner in downtown San Mateo, would like to know what will the mix be to kind of help in the sense that we could maybe provide input to kind of let them know, seeing the day-to-day, since we have our pulse on the ground in San Mateo, and perhaps offer some input. Let us know if we could be on a list of some sort to provide any kind of input. Be more than happy to do so. Since we've been there for over 25 years and we plan to stay maybe a little longer, it's just nice to know that you're all part of San Mateo. I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Any additional speakers in the audience? Come forward, please.
We have Steve Sirianni.
Hi, thank you for having me, commissioners and staff. My name is Steve Sirianni. I am a longtime resident of Foster City. I work in San Mateo, and I'm on the Downtown San Mateo Business Association. Prometheus Jonathan has come by at least twice, maybe 3 or 4 times, I don't know, but the outreach by Prometheus has been really amazing. They've taken us through all the steps. Everybody on the board is in full agreement that this is a really great project. I don't want to, I'll echo what everybody else said. You know, it'd be great to have even more high density, but I know we're limited by Measure P and other things for building height. And it would be great if we had, more of that, and proximity to the train is key. And also the retail, I think it's really important to have this new building out there. I think it'll somewhat revitalize and maybe shift the center of retail in downtown a little bit north, which I think will be nice with the addition of Worst Hall and what they're going to bring in. I think that's going to be a real nice area coming off of the train tracks to that corner. It's going to be beautiful, and it's really going to attract a lot of people. And the people who are already there, who live there and who are already there working there, I think they'll stay there and spend a lot more money. So, great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Selena M. Malk.
Hello, good evening, Planning Commission. My name's Selena Martinez-Meck, and I am a resident. I live near Trags on St. Matthews Avenue, and I'm also a Master's in Public Administration student in San Francisco. And so I actually was taking an urban sustainability class, and just so happened that the development was being built, and I had concerns about gentrification, and I reached out to Mr. Mata and the developers, and they just want to shine some positive light, because they were really receptive to my questions, and they met with me and they spent time explaining the whole development, and I got to learn more just as a student and a resident, and I was just really pleased with their outreach. And so I do approve. I urge to approve this development, but also just with the concern and being mindful of possible future gentrification of the Latino community with market forces. And so that's just my concern about that. But I do approve of the development in my neighborhood, and I think it'll be good for the downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speaker slips?
None.
No. Okay, one last call. Anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and offer your comments? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. So were there any questions posed by the public that we need to answer initially?
There was one request that the commission consider imposing a condition of approval that would prevent empty storefronts. And so I just wanted to speak to that a little bit. This is a planning application approval, and so it's really permitting a proposed use. It's not mandating a proposed use. I have seen development agreements in which a developer gets benefits in exchange for agreeing to keep storefronts full, but that's typically a function of a development agreement rather than a planning approval. So I just wanted to make the commission aware of that.
Thank you.
I'll let either Roscoe or Public Works chime in on this, but with respect to the TDM program, you'll see that condition number 5 on page 29 of 40 of the conditions of approval speaks to the Transportation Demand Management Program, and that written letter be submitted to the city indicating compliance with the TDM program. I would note that Public Works, I think it's Sue Ellen Atkinson, is the parking manager for the downtown, and the TDM coordinator or guru for the city is in the process of executing an RFP for the formation of the downtown TMA, and at that time then the TMA's role, or Transportation Management Authority's role, in implementing conditions of approval in the downtown would become known. But as the speaker indicated, the TMA has not yet been formed. So, number one, there would be submittal of a letter indicating the compliance with the Transportation Demand Management Plan. Secondarily, the city is in the process of, admittedly in the beginning stages of putting together the Downtown Transportation Management Authority Association, consistent with the downtown plan and generally with the city's climate action plan.
John, did you have a question?
Maybe a general question. To the chair, since this project does not require a VMT because of its proximity to transit, the level of service is being used for approval of the project, which is not governed by state law, correct, Ron?
The representative powers may want to speak, or Gary Black, to the provisions of SB 743, but my understanding is there's a phase-in of the VMT requirements. Similarly, even once VMT is used as a metric for CEQA purposes, that doesn't preclude localities from using level of service as a metric. For example, I think the city of Pasadena, one of the earlier adopters of VMT, they're using VMT. However, they also use level of service for specific projects. This may be a layman's explanation of VMT. VMT is going to give you the footprint, how many vehicle miles are being traveled, but it's not that great in terms of what the immediate impacts are to that immediate neighborhood. In other words, by reducing the number of vehicle miles traveled, that may or may not have any relationship to the number of cars that are going to be going by the person's house who lives next door to the project, in other words. So level of service is not a state requirement. I would say that, again, it's not used as a metric for CEQA under the provisions of SB 743, but it does not preclude cities from also using level of service as its own general plan metric. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not.
That does answer my question. Okay. Thank you. Through the chair, I do have some questions for the applicant or for the architect.
Sure.
That's appropriate at this time.
Yes. Move on to questions.
Thank you.
Could we have the architect come to the microphone, please?
Excuse me, a couple of relatively minor details. On on sheet A 2.2R. In the, on column line 5, D through E, you've got a private elevator or personal elevator, and then you've got the trash room, and then there's 2 doors into what appears to be chutes where you may be putting trash. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, and this facility will be having ways of handling composting, landfill, and recycling, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So would we need 3 chutes there instead of 2?
I think we would have to check the trash management plan. I'm not sure that the compost goes down a chute.
I believe we'll have a tote system as well. There's a number of ways to address the collection of the compost, be it totes and individually handed out by us as a management company, collection totes that are then brought down to a central collection spot in the larger garage.
Okay. I think the easier you make it for the applicants, the much more successful it's going to be. Most people do only show 2 chutes. I'm always looking for the third and the solution to that, because in multifamily it's very difficult, as you're well aware,
Agreed.
for the applicants to sort their materials, or the residents.
Without a doubt.
Great, thank you. The parking is unbundled, correct? I thought I saw that somewhere, the parking.
That's currently in the TDM as one of the
Right.
measures, and we're continuing to confirm and explore and
Perfect.
and review.
There was a note, I think, and one of the consultants noted that the rental parking was going to be on level 4, which they felt was going to be difficult for the tenants to use. Has there been any consideration or process on that item?
Sorry, just to confirm, the residential parking?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Is currently on level 2.
Okay, so it moved.
Correct.
Okay.
The garage has been redesigned a few different times.
Okay, all right. On sheet A 2.2B1, which is your basement, you've got 2 what appear to be shower rooms for bicyclists. What I don't see in there are lockers, benches, and are they unisex?
That level of detail may not be shown yet,
Okay.
but the intent is to provide the greatest showering experience that we can for those using the bikes.
Okay,
We just
great.
haven't gotten there quite yet.
Great. Are there operable windows in the residential units, but not the commercial side?
There are operable windows in the residential side as required by code. On the commercial side, that's something that's still being looked at.
We are including some operable windows in the office building.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
It's just not shown in this particular plan set yet.
Yeah, the plan set's good, but that's why I'm asking a few questions.
So there's 3 sides of the office, and a number of the sides have significant patio areas, and a lot of that window area almost becomes a window wall that opens up. So sliding doors and nano doors and the like,
Okay.
as opposed to just a casement window that opens.
Okay.
Clarification.
So I think there was a statement earlier that, and it's been noted more than once through the reports, that there is a gift of 12% of your property to the city to increase the size of the sidewalk. Yet, will that gift be used by private restaurants for their seating areas? And is that really a gift to the city?
In order to achieve the sidewalk widths necessary to meet the various different sidewalk guidelines in the downtown, the width of the sidewalk must pinch into the private property. That portion of the private property will be then, I believe the document we're using is a public access easement over those percentages of land or those areas of land. So it may fall in large part to what would be a retail user or other area, but ultimately it falls into the public realm of usability and that overall width of the sidewalk.
Okay.
That's the desired result.
Thank you. This is for Public Works, and again, it may be on these drawings, but it's somewhat difficult at the scale that they're at and where they're going with it. Are we going to be able to plant the trees without using our typical sidewalk grates? It looks like there's planting strips. I'm not sure. So it's kind of hard to tell what's going on.
The trees that are along B Street do have the grates. There's, I'm looking for a sheet. In the landscape plans, sorry. Yeah, so, so the trees along B Street and Baldwin do have tree grates. Then the ones that are along Ellsworth are in planting strips.
Okay. I'm noticing in a lot of different jurisdictions that the grates are being phased out for a variety of reasons, not the least being that it may be a more productive way to keep the trees alive. And I was curious if the city has started to go down that route or not.
Yeah, but I couldn't answer that. That would be more probably for the city arborist to answer that. But I mean, in here, the reason the tree grates is because you do have, that's kind of an active use between the trees. You do have the brickwork there that will have, bike parking and possibly, that's why they're in that particular spot. But that would probably be a better question for the city arborist.
No problem. Thank you, Ken. I'd like to address the Climate Action Plan Consistency Checklist. A couple of questions on it. You're showing on page A75 that there will be 32 EV charging stations. And I think you're also going to be letting some of your parking be used as public parking in the evenings and the weekends. And I was curious if you were going to program or have any of these EV charging stations in locations that the public will have access to.
There will be some percentage that will be shared in nights and evenings. We haven't worked out the nuances and the design of the garage yet to identify what those will be with regards to the charging stations provided. We'll work with city staff on the code related to that. I can't speak to the exact details of it right now, but that's certainly, I believe, something that's in the code that we'll be working with.
Great, that's good to hear. I believe there's a state law that in 2020, all residential units that are 5 stories or less will be required to be net positive energy, specifically using all clean energy and producing extra energy from the projects. So I know that the city of San Mateo has a square footage requirement for solar, and I'm not sure which system that you are going to use. Have you looked into the 2020 state law on the requirements for residential properties? And are you going to try and incorporate some of them into this project?
I believe we're currently incorporating current solar design guidelines at the moment. We are in the middle of kicking off another level of technical drawings, the working drawings, and that level of analysis will take place. I can't speak to it right now, but we bring in lots of code consultants that bring us up to speed on all new laws, and we'll certainly be looking into that and other laws that are on the horizon.
Perfect, thank you. So I got one semi-loaded question. And this is the same question that I've asked numerous times to many different applicants and get a lot of different answers. Why are you choosing to increase your parking so substantially?
Sure.
believe we've got approximately 20 stalls that are above what the minimum codes are that are required by the city of San Mateo. And in the design that we've got, where we're going down 4 levels below grade, I believe we would be at 3.5 levels to meet the city's minimum code standards. And the incremental construction to go through the process of completing that 4th level and not doing a half level was such that it seemed to be more efficient and makes sense for us to err on the high side as far as the parking was concerned in that regard.
So it's roughly 32 spaces, isn't it? Something like that.
I believe we had 22.
It's 22 to 24, depending upon the shaft that may appear in 1 or 2 of those spaces.
Yeah, we believe it's 22, so if the plans are showing 30-something, I believe it should be 22.
Okay, all right. I thought you had not chosen to use the state density bonus of 0.5 per bedroom, which would have been 32.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, we decided to not do that. And we decided not to do that because 1 bedroom per unit we felt like was an appropriate number of parking stalls and not go down to the absolute bare minimum. Our concern was missing out a large part of the market that would have 1 car in a 1 bedroom unit. So we did want to supply that level of parking. So, and I think there was a good point made by someone in the audience earlier today that in the unlikely chance that we actually have additional parking, I love the idea of being able to provide that to somebody else who's building a project that is underparked. So having the ability to do that, in addition to providing parking to the public on nights and weekends, we hope will be a significant benefit potentially.
So my concern with the overparking is multi-pronged, but part of it is the financial component. I think in some of your documentation, you said that you could not have larger residential, or you chose not to have larger residential units because of the cost of the labor agreement that you had. And so if you were to eliminate some of your additional parking, would that money be able to be used on larger residential units?
Yeah, the actual constraint as far as unit size is concerned, we would have loved to have done all 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms on this property and stick with the same number of units that we've got on the site. But to be quite honest, given the height limit and the constraint of just available space on the site to build those units, we ended up with a far larger percentage of 1 bedrooms and studios than we normally would do. So if we were going to do 2 and 3 bedrooms as an example on the site, we would be having far, far less units, both market rate and affordable. So we would love to have built larger units. We would just need more room on the site, and the only way to do that was to go up to 5 or 6 or 7 stories. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do that with the height limits within the city of San Mateo.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's it for now.
Okay. Questions? No more questions. Romero?
I have a question for the applicant.
Okay.
Yes. You've repeatedly said that you're moving into the office space in the building itself. So out of the 60,000 square foot, how much space would you be occupying?
That's a good question. So, right now we're focused on estimating that real roughly at around 40,000 square feet. And that may vary a little bit as we go through our analysis of employee count, not just now, but in the future as well. But right now, our best estimate is 40,000, plus or minus, call it 5,000.
And I understand that you previously said that you've changed your parking site plan for residential to be on the 2nd level. Where will be the office parking on what level?
It's going to be down on the bottom level as well as the 3rd level, right? So the 1st level is going to be the retail parking, then we get down to the 2nd level for the residential and 3rd and 4th levels, right?
Correct.
For the office.
There will be a portion of the office that will also be on the 2nd floor, that 2nd floor tray that has the residential. There will be a piece between what will be the ground floor retail and open during public hours. And then between that and the residential, there will be a portion that's somewhere in the 30 to 40 range currently. We're still working through the drawings of the garage right now. That will be for the commercial office space above, and then the remainder of that will be on the 3rd and 4th floors.
And none of those parking stalls will be used on nights and weekends for the public, correct? Only the 30 stalls that you have on the 2nd level?
As it's currently configured, yes, but that's still an area that's being worked on right now.
Okay,
It may be open to be doing more. I mean, the biggest parking change since the last time we met was we went from the automated parking systems to more conventional. That's why we're down to 4 stories right now.
So you previously talked about you had a restraint on trying to convert, I believe the hot topic in the previous study sessions has been the mixed use or the mixed housing. You just stated right now that you're trying to see if you had the opportunity to build 2 or 3 bedrooms. What would have been the cost to convert those studio units into 1 bedrooms? And have them all 1 bedrooms, not 2 or 3 bedrooms, but all 1 bedroom units?
Yeah, so there isn't additional cost to do that. We would just end up with fewer units overall, right? So there's an FAR that's constraining us to X thousand square feet of space for the residential, and then we're slicing and dicing that, if you will, into a certain number of units. And we can get more units by having smaller units and studios in 1 bedrooms. That's how we ended up there. But it really isn't a cost equation at the end of the day. It was a unit count issue.
Through the chair. Excuse me.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Looking at the attachment 6, the factual data sheet, I was actually wrong. You are going to be building 283 spaces where your requirement is 230, so it's 53 more spaces, which would be substantial portion of at least 1 level, I would think.
I think that calculation is assuming the residential is at 0.5. Is that correct, Roscoe?
Yeah.
So we're doing 1-to-1. So then that delta gets down to 22 spaces. That's above the existing code for the 3 uses. So if each 3 uses are met, 1-to-1 residential, 1.9 for retail, and 2.6 for office.
Right.
The remainder
which would bring you at 230, not 283. Is what the sheet says.
Okay. The calculation may be slightly off. I'll let staff speak to that.
Yeah, the applicant's providing a slightly more office parking spaces than the code requires, and that is the code requires for the office use. For employees and visitors, 159. The applicant is providing 176. In addition, as you mentioned, the density bonus law of 0.5 per unit, instead of 0.5 per unit, which is 14 for the studio and then 19 for the 1 bedrooms. The applicant is providing 39 and 29. So both combination of the office, additional office stalls as well as the residential, that accounts for the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
You're finished? Okay. So if Mr. Cannon could come to the microphone, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So I very much appreciate your analysis of the evolution of the design for this building. The one area that concerns me is the Zone 1 storefronts, which is the Baldwin elevation. And I believe you the main comment you put in your letter had to do with the canopy that's been added above the ground floor area. And right now it's a singular flat canopy, is that correct?
Yes.
And does it extend all the way from North B to North Ellsworth?
Yes.
It does. And you have suggested that perhaps it could be, at the discretion of the Planning Commission, broken up into smaller canopies to more similarly reflect what's going on opposite Baldwin?
I think my comment was not that it'd be smaller canopies, but maybe a smaller awnings, because that's what's right across the street. I think that really is a question, and that's why I phrased it the way it is. I spent 4 years on the San Francisco Landmarks Preservation Advisory Board. We ran into this a lot, and one way that we usually resolved it is in the case like this, it's something cleaner, fresher, it's not mimicking what's across the street, it's sort of a foil for the older buildings. And so you could take that approach, or you could take the approach that it really needed to be exactly like the scale and character across the street. That's a judgment.
Okay. So the other comment I have, and it's not really directed at your work, but in looking at all of the documents that we got and the wonderful renderings and perspectives, I was struck by the fact that the one elevation that really isn't emphasized is the full width of Baldwin. There's a lot of images of the corner Baldwin to North B, but other than this tiny little elevation on this sheet, that's the only time we get the opportunity to see that full elevation.
Yeah, I think
and since it faces the downtown and that's the way people are going to enter the area, I think it's really important.
I'd have to defer to the architects on that, but I thought, as I was going through the staff report yesterday before coming here, I didn't print all the sheets, but I did notice that there was another additional, maybe 2 renderings focused on that area. It wasn't straight on, but it was at both corners. Am I incorrect in that? Anyway, I would still go back to my comment before. I think it's a very simple, clean design that's sort of not trying to mimic what's across the street, and that's a judgment call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, is it Gary Black that's here from Hexagon?
Yes.
Could you please come to the microphone? Hello.
Hello.
I'm interested in 3 of the intersections that were studied. So, as I'm reading the different charts, you know, the existing conditions, the background conditions, the project plus existing, project plus background, it appears that the intersection at North B and Tilton Avenue is the loser. They drop down to a level E, level of service.
That's correct.
That's correct, okay.
Yes.
And they're currently at D?
Yes, though it's, let me just expand on that a little bit, because that intersection is not signalized.
Correct.
It's a stop sign intersection, and it's a stop sign for B, but not for Tilton. So that level of service refers to the leg of B that has a stop sign. So not the intersection as a whole, which is kind of hard to define since 2 of the directions don't stop at all, so they won't have any delay at all.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm comparing that to the intersection at Baldwin and North Ellsworth and Baldwin and North B, which pretty much stay at level A. One of them does drop to B in the PM hour. So I'm curious why those 2 intersections that are closest to the project are not the one most impacted, and it's the one further north up at Tilton.
Well, you'll see that the impact of the project is really minimal. Really what's happening at B and Tilton is an increase in background traffic, if you will, from other projects that are going to come online in the downtown that we projected would add traffic to B and then would hit the stop sign at Tilton. The project itself would have very little impact at that intersection.
But am I wrong in assuming that the 900 plus daily trips would probably come from the south of the site and not the north?
Well, they wouldn't, yes, I think that's correct. Yeah. We'll just shortcut and say, yes.
Yes. But the expectation is that the traffic will continue to flow pretty much as it does today.
Yes, in the overall context of, all the traffic downtown, the added traffic from this project is quite modest.
Okay, thank you. So now I have some questions for Public Works. On page 4 of the administrative report, it refers to a shared parking agreement with the city of San Mateo. Could you describe that for us?
It's being developed currently with our parking manager, Sue Allen. So we don't currently have one now.
Okay, so I think what I heard in other questions and conversations that that's related to the fact that some of the parking spaces in this garage will be open to the public at certain days and times.
Yes.
Okay. And if that wasn't the case, then there would not be a need for this agreement?
Possibly.
Yes, there would be a need for an agreement because in order to authorize the use of private spaces for the public, there's going to need to be some sort of an agreement between the city and the property owner. This condition is similar to the condition, as you may recall, with the Windy Hill project that's currently under construction on Claremont. They're also going to be allowing a portion of their garage to be utilized for public purposes. What hours, how much they're able to charge, who manages it, all those things would be worked out as part of the project post-planning application approval.
Maybe I misunderstood you, but is it the developer's option to provide that?
No.
The city requires
The city
that they...
requires it. If the city didn't require it, it wouldn't be a condition of approval.
And what triggers that requirement? I mean, does the parking garage have to be over a certain count?
We have been uniformly requiring this of downtown parking, private parking garages, due to the fact of the limitations that we have with public parking opportunities. And so rather than looking isolated at public versus private parking spaces, since a parking space doesn't know if it's private or public, a car is parking in it, then why not treat the entire pool of parking in the downtown area, regardless of whether it's private or public, as a resource to be used to fulfill demand that's being generated by downtown customers, employees, and residents.
So this only occurs in the downtown area?
That is correct up to this point.
Okay. Learn something new at every meeting. So I have some questions about the construction staging location and materials laydown space, where that would be, and would it be on-site or located off-site?
We're still in the process of putting together that plan. We have some guidelines from the city thus far, but there are certain further analysis we have to do, both internally with our general contractor as well as with the city.
Okay.
So don't have an answer for you more than that right now.
And also, it's important, the city doesn't allow for storage of materials in the public right-of-way. They can use it for staging for construction activities, but they can't store materials in the public right-of-way.
Okay. And then I noticed that there's going to be quite a bit of road work on the 3 streets surrounding the property. In fact, one of the plans indicates that you're saw cutting down the middle of each of the streets. And I have a concern about whether it's going to be phased or all 3 streets are going to be impacted at the same time, and hopefully they'll be phased. And it will essentially make those streets 2-way but only 1 lane.
The traffic control planning will certainly be discussed at length with the representatives from Public Works over here.
Yeah, generally the traffic control plan's usually submitted by the actual contractor at the time when he's ready to do it. And yeah, we would, obviously all 3 streets would not be done at one time. And again, that saw cutting is being done to restore the roadway that will, inevitably be damaged during construction with all the equipment and everything. So at that time, they will give us, times and everything. But yeah, it wouldn't be a long term. That would not be something that would be non-usable for a long period of time, because that would just be for them to do the final overlay. They would saw cut it, grind it down, and then repave it. So that would be like maybe a week-long process at all, most, for each of the ones. And they probably do, one street first, one street. And they'll also have closures, when they're redoing the sidewalk and things like that. But those will be phased during the life of the project.
I'm just thinking of the Windy Hill project at 4th and Claremont, where lanes have been shifted and closed and detours and whatnot, which really wasn't discussed at all at the Planning Commission hearings.
Yeah, well, this project will definitely have, temporary closures of sidewalks. And like I say, for the staging, because this is a lot line, project all the way around, they will be, during construction, there will be pedestrian detours and such like that. I mean, they have an advantage. Baldwin, they will have space to put a pedestrian bypass there, and something where you'll have, a couple K rails, and you'll keep a walkway through that area. So, but certainly at times Ellsworth sidewalk, I'm certain, will be closed at times, and but we will try to manage it and keep it to a minimum. But those plans will all come in and go through through a separate review during the building permit stage.
Thank you. And then one final question for staff. On drawing sheet A 4.1, it shows several sky plane sections, and I'm wondering why that requirement only applies to Baldwin and North B, but not Ellsworth.
It's in the zoning code. It specifies which locations the sky plane is taken from, and it's only those 2 streets for this project.
So is the requirement that it has to, what is it, you have to do 2 and you can choose which 2, or
no,
the street has to be a certain width before you're required to do it?
The sky plane has to be on certain streets, and B Street and Baldwin streets are those that are indicated that has to meet.
Okay. Thank you. Any other follow-up questions?
To the chair, could we get some pictures up or some photos up of the options for the storefront awnings along B Street?
This area here?
That's the newest revised.
That's North B Street towards the northwest end.
So could you go back to the previous? Okay, thank you.
No question?
I just need clarification. I had thought that I had seen a rendering where that soffit was built with a wood material. So apparently I was reading the drawings incorrectly. I don't know if it had been that way in a previous rendition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ellen?
Jonathan, you mentioned that you had some pictures of the potential decorative wall at the front.
We do indeed. We showed those briefly before. Would you like to take a look?
I would, because was there the, looked like a bas relief of, and I must have missed that when it was going through. Yeah, that one. Oop. Yeah, that one. So are these just artist renderings of what the possibility would be?
That's correct.
Okay, and the one on the left is what? Is that also a consideration?
The one on the left would be a composition of these various panels. And again, this is very representative and of the possibilities of what this could be. So each panel, which you might see on the right, would talk about a certain element of the history that could be as literal as some of these or more figurative. And then the composition of those, they would be put together in a way that would come together into what you're seeing on the left side of the screen.
Okay, so the left is more of a holding pattern of what could be in each of those spots?
Correct.
That's not what I'm going to be seeing up there.
This is not what you will be seeing. This is representative of the way in which these panels play with light and shadow and depth and get put together to speak to an entire story.
Got it, thank you.
Sure.
Through the chair, I do have one other important question, and it was brought up in the previous study sessions. And I don't know if it was answered or not. I think it was, but I can't find it in the documentation. I had requested that you look into the possibility of not bringing natural gas to your building and using only electric or other renewable types of energy. I was curious if you have made any progress on that.
We're still studying all of that right now as we get into the technical drawings. So I can't speak to where we've ended up because we haven't ended up.
Okay, we have recently gotten 2 or 3 applicants who have committed to that, which is good news for, I think, all of San Mateans and the reduction of greenhouse gases. This is a TOD development. If you took it a step further, you would not only be reducing vehicle miles traveled, but also the use of fossil fuels in your project. And we've got PCE that is very active and supportive of those programs, and I'm hoping that you will proceed those discussions.
We're certainly continuing the analysis of that. We certainly have seen your comments on this topic before for this project and others, but as we study this, we'll come to a conclusion that will very may be what you're suggesting. But as we analyze Build Green and other lead items, this is one of those items that comes up.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. We've been going for a little over 2 hours. Do we want to take a short break now, or do we want to continue through? Mm-hmm. What do you think? Okay, everyone's fine. So we'll move on to comments. Who would like to start?
I'll start.
You'll start, okay.
And looking at the updated design aspect of the building from what has been presented of previous study sessions and for voting, I like this new design. I believe this new design will actually fit well in that area. I like how the applicant introduced the idea of the awnings, especially the fabric awnings that are more prevalent on more of the North Beach Street, on more of what is considered the Little Mexico of San Mateo. So I'd like the integration of those different types of awnings and those different types of structures to blend in more with what's there on North B. My only reservation is that we're not, and I know that it's, we are limited to what we can provide in that area with high restrictions, is to not provide more housing and not provide more family types of housing units, which are more 2 or 3 bedrooms. I believe that is what's lacking in that downtown area. It's more residential units that fits more of the mold of a family. These units here are more for individuals, single occupants, but I welcome the applicant, him moving their main headquarters to downtown San Mateo, because all of those employees of that establishment will actually be the ones walking down, eating in all these different restaurants and shopping in all these different areas within the city. I encourage the applicant when he's trying to find residents for the storefronts and for the commercial areas is to find businesses that fit the area of downtown, especially the North B area, that can transition from downtown San Mateo to that North B area. So to find businesses that fit the mold of what is there. And I'm in full favor of this project.
Thank you. John, are you ready? No. Ellen?
So I came in on this project after the study session, so I wasn't around for all the initial ground laying of 303 Baldwin. But I did meet with John and Jonathan and was brought up to speed on some of the process about what went on when they were putting things together, and that was very, very helpful to me. I am in support of this project. I think it's a fabulous multi-use building. I think the office portion will invigorate downtown, and I think that's very important. It's a great location for the housing units, close to the train station, close to downtown, and I very much appreciate the materials that are being used that are in sync with other historical buildings downtown. As far as the historical significance of the archaeological possibility, that jumps out at me right now because we are going to be celebrating the 250th anniversary of Portola's discovery of the San Francisco Bay. And part of that celebration includes bringing Ohlone descendants together into San Mateo County to celebrate their part in making that possible for Portola. So the timing is very interesting as we look at a potential dig that could unearth some Ohlone things. And I am very, very concerned that if anything is found, and that's a big if, that is being taken seriously, and that the items, if they are found, are preserved. So I would like to just make that as a public comment. As far as the design goes, I have to admit, I really liked the one just prior to this one with the columns. So I'm kind of bummed. But the whole use of the Ohlone structure in the tile, I think, is a fascinating nod to the historical significance of the city. And I really appreciate Prometheus's decision to go that route. But by adding the metal canopies and taking out those columns, as I said, I was disappointed. I liked that portion. I'm not a fan of the brick frieze, which I think I heard called a sawtooth design. I think with the horizontal brick of the columns, which I like, and then turning it and making it a vertical hash mark to me. That was a little too much. And I really like the idea of a frieze, but I don't like it to look so choppy. So I would love to see a different look along that particular portion of it. I really like the cloth canopies on the B Street side, and that fits in so well with so many of the downtown buildings. I'm not a big fan of metal canopies, period, because I think they date the building to the early 2000s, and I think in 50 years or whatever, people are going to say, oh, that building was from that era because of the canopies. I'm very excited about the decorative pieces and the incorporation of the story of how San Mateo came to be. I think that's a really very interesting feature for the building. I am very appreciative also of the number of parking spaces, and here's why. Because I think that when you limit the number of parking spaces to 0.5, those who do have cars have to find somewhere else to park their cars, and they're going to park them in the neighborhood. And that neighborhood is going to have parking impacts, and there's not much that can be done about that. So by enabling each unit to have one parking place, I think that is going to protect the neighborhood and other parts of downtown from additional parking issues. So I give kudos to our applicant on that. And I think that was all my comments. Congratulations. I think it's going to be a great development.
John?
Through the chair. Thank you to the public. I always enjoy hearing your input before we have to make our decisions. And a great package by the staff. Thank you. And good presentation by the applicant. Overall, I like the building. I think the architecture will fit in well. I'm glad to hear that the historical associations have looked at it and thought it would blend in well with downtown. Great job. I've liked most of the changes that have been done. I strongly encourage this to be a highly sustainable building as we are moving into new territories with our environment, and what you can do will help us reduce our impacts. I don't like over-parking. I continue to say this on a very regular basis because I am being told constantly that we aren't going to need parking. It's expensive to build, and it can be used for housing people instead of parking vehicles. Thank you for doing a labor agreement. Good job. I appreciate that. There were a couple of concerns that I had brought up in the last two meetings, and I heard them again this evening from Jordan and from Selena, and that specifically had to do with gentrification. And I think this is a very nice building in a lovely location that's adjoining a neighborhood that has been labeled highly susceptible to being negatively impacted by gentrification. There's been a study that has recently been put together by UC Berkeley, which has outlined all of the areas that they can find in the Bay Area that are susceptible to gentrification and the ramifications that will have on the immediate occupants or residences in those areas, including having to relocate because of the economic pressures put there. So I think that we have addressed the downtown area well, but I don't think we've looked at the human side of this project and the impacts that it could have. And for the most part, these types of developments have demonstrated to have negative effects on the most vulnerable in our community. That is why I am much more concerned with saving costs, enlarging those units, having the same amount of bedrooms, reducing parking, and getting some families into these areas. Everything that we have been looking at lately have been micro studios that are just kind of thrown into these projects. And it's nice to have the housing, but those are very restrictive uses. You're not going to get the community built around single occupancy rooms. It's a transient development, and you don't get the community benefit that you could out of some 2 and 3 bedrooms, especially if they were lower cost. And I think the project is wonderful, but we are getting too many of these small units, and we are not addressing the dire need for families to have places to live that are affordable. My recommendation will be, when we vote, is that the City Council does approve this project, yet at the same time, they find ways to have the same amount of bedrooms, yet larger units dispersed throughout. I don't know if that would be feasible, but that would be my recommendation at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. So, quite to my own surprise, I don't have a lot of comments on the aesthetics or the building design this time. You know, usually that's my main focus. I think the evolution has led us to a much better solution. Well, let me back up. First of all, only John and I have been here for all the meetings and went through the 2 study sessions. So we've definitely seen the change from every time we've met here in the chambers. And it's moved in the right direction. We've addressed a lot of the issues that came up in the initial public meetings. I am still concerned about that Baldwin elevation. I would like to see more energy put into making that the full elevation, not just the corner that it shares with B Street, as interesting and as lively as the other 2 elevations. So we talked a little bit tonight about the location of the creek. And coming into the meeting, that was a big concern of mine, because all of the location maps show the creek going right through the middle of this site. Yet, everything we've heard from Public Works and the CEQA document have all said, no, it's adjacent to the parcel. It does not run under the parcel. So we're going to find out who's right. And the reason it concerned me was the fact, if it does in fact go through your site, the 4-level parking garage is going to be a huge challenge. So some of my a large part of my concerns have to do with the context that this building is located in. One is the aesthetics of the building. We've talked a lot about that and how it relates to the existing downtown historic district. It's not in the district, but it's pretty darn close to the north edge. Again, the current design addresses that much better than the initial design, so we've made progress there. The height is a concern for me. I worked for 10 years in the potentially historic building across the street at 15 North Ellsworth, the former Snyder and Sullivan Funeral Home. So I know that length of Ellsworth very well, from Baldwin up to Tilton. And it's a mix of residential, there's actually a couple single-family homes, a lot of duplexes, triplexes, and a few larger buildings. So we're talking 1 to 3. I think there's 2 that are 3 stories in height. It's adjacent to the potentially eligible building on the California Registry of Historic Resources. And it is adjacent to the two tall towers on the southwest corner of Ellsworth and Baldwin, the 9-story Mills Tower and the 9-story Hillsborough Plaza Apartments, both of which were built in a time where there was less restrictions on building height, and we've had to deal with those decisions for many years since. The compatibility is compatibility is also a concern for me. And most of it has to do with the different functions that you've located along Ellsworth, which is predominantly a residential street, as opposed to B, which is commercial. Some of those things are the entrance to the parking garage, the location where the trash bins are going to be picked up at minimum once a week, the loading zone, and then we have the underground transformers. And I personally feel that's incompatible with the residential uses on Ellsworth and might be better situated on the B Street side. There's also the issue of light and glare that one of our public speakers mentioned, and it's talked about in the mitigated negative deck. The current design reduces the possibility of that because we've eliminated a lot of the glass floor to ceiling, but I think there still is the potential that some of the local existing residents might have to deal with more light and glare than they would like. So the number of conditions of approval that are contained in our documents specifically those that relate to mitigating potentially significant impacts is pretty high. I counted 14 specifically that were recommended in the mitigated negative deck, and I have to say that's more than any other project I can remember having reviewed while sitting on the Planning Commission. Especially significant, I think, are those related to the biological resources, the monitoring program, and how carefully you have to watch. The biological resources having to deal with the potential bird and other species on site and limiting the construction period to, I think it's 5 out of 12 months of the year, if these species are found on site. And then the cultural resources, the monitoring for that and having someone on site. And I believe it said any digging greater than 6 inches has to be observed and documented if anything is found. Those are extensive and very onerous to the developer. So you know what you're getting yourself into. There seems to be a popularity within current projects coming forth with these roof terraces, and I have to tell you, I'm not a big fan of those. And I'm sure when you go through the building department, they'll let you know about exiting because they are occupiable spaces. We already talked about traffic when you're working on the 3 adjacent streets and the traffic plan. So that's it for comments. I want to give a big thank you to staff, the consultants. All of the consultant documents were fabulous. And the applicant for giving us such a great process and a project to review. And I'll just close by saying there was a former San Mateo mayor who once said, and I didn't hear him say this, someone told me, so I don't know if it's a direct quote, which is, "Buildings are our most enduring form of public art." So with that said, let's make sure we get it right on this very important site in the city of San Mateo. Any other comments? Okay, are we ready to take a vote? Okay. Someone like to make a motion? Someone?
I would like to make a motion to adopt the mitigating negative declaration as adequate to assess the environmental impacts of the project based on the findings for approval as attachment 1, and approve the site plan and architectural review, SPAR, for construction of a new mixed-use building, site development plan application for tree removal and vesting tentative map for residential and commercial units and associated common area based on the findings for approval attached as attachment 1 and subject to the conditions of approval in attachment 2.
Do I have a second?
I second.
If I just might provide a clarification, we are assuming that the findings are those as amended and forwarded to you in the memo from Roscoe this evening.
Okay.
I second.
Second? Ramiro. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion carries 4-0.
And this decision is final with the Planning Commission unless appealed in accordance with the San Mateo Municipal Code.
So, we're going to move on to reports and announcements.
If you want to have a conversation, if you could take it outside, please. Russell, get those guys out.
Hello? If you want to continue your conversations, can you please move to the lobby? We have not concluded our meeting. Thank you.
So speaking of meetings, what I would like to indicate is your next meeting, as the chair indicated earlier, is on Wednesday, the 23rd, because of the Martin Luther King holiday and the bumping of the city council meeting. That'll be One Waters Office Park, the residential project. Please keep your staff reports because we're not planning on sending another packet. If there are any updates, it'll be in a memo form, much like Roscoe provided you tonight. But we are not intending to resend the packet again. The meeting before, the night before, the January 22nd meeting, there is a study session, although it'll occur, I think, at the end of the regular council meeting, with an update of the general plan process with the city council. I think there are a number of issues that have been raised, and so it'll be a chance for staff, consultant, and public to check in with the city council in terms of the general plan process itself. In February, we do still intend to come forward with a general plan vision statement, albeit incorporating some of the comments that we received from the public, as well as the general plan subcommittee, of which Romero and Ellen are both members of. We do have an appeal of a single-family home on 2230 Ensenada Way, just on the other side here of Alameda. So that will be coming forward to you. And additionally, a grading permit for someone to work at Abbott Middle School. So that's what it's looking like in terms of the meetings in February. And again, January 23rd, Waters Office Park. The 22nd is a council meeting for the general plan status update. Just a couple of training items I had forwarded to you, and I think some of you have been in communication with Ryan about the League of California Cities Planning Commissions Academy. We do have budget available to handle lodging, transportation, the registration, as well as the city's designated per diem. So please do contact Ryan. If possible, by the end of the week. This is a very popular training session and it tends to book quickly. So I know some of you had said you were going to drive, which is fine, but just arrival times, if you want to fly, you can either fly, you can make your own arrangements and then be reimbursed, or if you'd like Ryan to make them. But if you could just, I think I had emailed with some questions, please let us know so we can make the arrangements. If you could let us know by the end of this week, or if you can't, just send an email to Ryan and say, look, I need a few more days. That way we make sure we don't miss anybody. We get all the registration, everything done in a timely manner, and we don't miss out. Secondarily, 21 Elements, I think I had forwarded you an email. On Thursday, January 31st, they're having a dinner and a training for San Mateo County Planning Commissioners to talk about things like the role of the commission, the art of making findings, why do we plan, things of that nature. So if you need me to send that email again, I can send it again if it's been, you've gotten a lot of emails lately, so maybe I can just resend it. But that is Thursday, January the 31st, and you can go ahead and sign up on the 21 Elements website, and there's a link in the email I sent to you, but I'll try and send it again.
So we should take care of that on our own?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those are two training opportunities coming up. But again, especially for the League of California Cities, that one books up quickly. The hotel books up quickly. So we'd like to get that arranged as soon as possible.
I just encourage, especially our newer commissioners, to attend that multiple day conference. It's you learn a lot. You meet great people, and it's an activity we do together as a group. So get to know each other a little bit better outside of the meeting. And so I had that on my list also, and I wanted to thank Ron for sending out the new staff bios. But I've never figured out how to print from the city's website, email stuff. Because last time you did the bios, you gave us a hard copy or some, it was a different format.
We can give you a hard copy, and maybe offline we can just talk about printing from the city's website.
So it is possible?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is possible.
If I know it's possible, I'll figure it out, but I gave up after a couple tries.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.